Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, AJ, so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. Excited to be here.
Thank you. So, today, AJ, we are going to start with my favorite game on the show that we like to do. Um, this is called Market Me This, where I give you an extremely absurd product that would probably be a little difficult to market, and you are going to develop a plan for me. It can be anything. Obviously, marketing is so more heavily involved than developing a very short plan for it. So you can go into any aspect that you prefer, or like to give an overarching general, outline for what you do for this product. Does that sound good?
Cool. Yeah. Hit me with it.
Okay, so bear with me here of like my what this is that I've created for you. Okay, so this is a virtual reality campfire. Okay, so now, okay, this is my vision, right? You know those fake fires that people have, like they have like a fake fire like under their TV, like a lot of people use it as a TV stand or whatever. My dad had one growing up. Okay.
Yep. My parents have one currently.
There you go. Okay, so usually that just makes sound sometimes, but usually it's just like, the flickering image of a fire. This one is different than that. It has smell, it also has sound, and it also radiates heat. So it's more interactive, for lack of better phrasing, than a normal one. So now that you have a vision in mind, market me this product.
Wow. I guess the first thing I say is where can I get one? This feels like a 3D. It's like all the comforts of a campfire without the hazard of it. That's what I go to. Like I'm thinking something where, and I'm thinking more along the lines of, but I'm starting kind of at the ICP level, right? Like who exactly are we marketing to first, and then we can take this plan and take it on the road. I would imagine that this is somebody perfect for somebody who enjoys the accessibility and the lifestyle that a large metropolitan city offers, but also weekend getaways somewhere in like Maine or the Pacific Northwest or something like that. Very LL Bean, Patagonia, outdoorsy type folks, but also still live in the city, so they can't exactly build those campfires. This feels like right up their alley.
Yes.
I would say, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I always say like websites are my digital safe haven. So first off, we're gonna build a website. We're gonna find a digital footprint to put all of this information, making sure that we're putting the right information on there. Of course, all the value props. We're gonna let people know that you can enjoy the smell, the warmth, the comfort, and the community that a good fire and a bonfire brings without being without worried that you're going to be lit on fire. We're gonna put together a good sizzle reel and explainer video of somebody enjoying this with their friends inside of their home, so they get all of that kind of all the warm and fuzzies from it. And then from there, I would say, you start branching out. You start doing the paid advertisement in the places where people are naturally going to be shopping for these things. I'm thinking, again, in the realm of like the LL Bean Patagonia community, where they're buying their outdoorsy clothes, the other places that they're going to be shopping. I'm thinking also like Reddit communities and forums, where the best tips to start a fire, camping and packing, those types of things. Any sort of overlap of the outdoors, but bringing it inside, that's really where I think that something like this would shine. And that's kind of how I would think about at least starting and stringing that up. So I hopefully that's a little bit of a good game plan there.
That was an incredible game plan, and I think that would truly work very, very well. I definitely think, yeah, it's for the crunchy granola community of us that isn't actually maybe wanting to get outside in the cold and create a campfire.
The crunchy granola who find themselves living next to Chinatown. That's
exactly.
That's kind of what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, that sounds absolutely lovely. And I think if you really wanted to get a little experimental with the advertising for it, you could have a compilation of people lighting themselves on fire with campfires, accidentally, and then be like, this won't happen to you if you buy our product.
Exactly. I'm even thinking of going to something like a Campground of America, where people are already outside and being like, look how good, it's just like the real thing. where you can stick your hand over it, live demonstrations.
No, I love that.
Take it to trade shows too. That could be a really cool, you build a whole outdoor wilderness experience with the fire being the focal point, as a general fire is, get people sitting around. I mean, imagine somebody walking around a trade show like that saying, booth number S340 over here has hot chocolate and s'mores. Come on by. And lo and behold, look what you got in the center. You got this fake campfire that smells and sounds and actually gives warmth. I don't know if anybody's leaving that.
Yeah, no, exactly. You could interview firemen, and they could say how safe their family is. How they're like, or you have a whole demonstration of firemen saying we're out of a job now.
Yeah. You got to get Smokey the Bear involved, of course. A pinch of nostalgia goes a long way in these things. So that's what I'm imagining. Whatever the name of this company or product, this prevents forest fires.
Yes, exactly. No, this vision is incredible. I mean, you can take it. I don't think it exists. So if you...
All right, perfect. Well, I appreciate this. We can wrap it up. I got work to do.
I appreciate it. I always tell people they can take my ideas. Most of them, honestly, I think I gave you one that was not as absurd as I normally give. I think I set you up for success on this one, at least.
Well, I appreciate that. Listen, everyone wants to hit the threes, but you know what? I'm gonna take my layups when I got them. I'm gonna take those.
No worries. No, this was incredible. So, AJ, now that you've entertained us, please tell us a little more about yourself. Kind of, why you're on this show. What is your kind of journey up to this point in your marketing career? Maybe how you fell into marketing and everything that you think is relevant to, for people to know about you a little more.
Yeah. So I'm AJ. I like long walks on the beach. I'm just trying to find love. No, obviously, I'm as my title suggests, I'm the head of marketing at Parakeet. We're a company that does cold outbound, specifically cold email. And I kind of came into this with a little bit of a roundabout way. I guess everyone's career is a little bit roundabout, but goes all the way back to kind of college. Like, thought I was going to be a clinician doing some sort of psychology, found myself doing kind of lab work, realized I liked the more A/B variable testing of things, found myself mixed up doing website testing. So that's kind of where the whole thing started. And I found myself in the financial services for a number of years, and decreasingly, I would say, the teams got smaller and smaller and smaller. Which means I get more and more responsibility, which is fantastic. So right now it's a lean, mean team of kind of me, myself, and I, a couple auxiliary parts here and there, but I'm leading the charge at Parakeet, and it's been a good ride since. So I'm kind of everything from strategy to executioner, head of and intern. I have to go get myself my own coffee, but it's a good time, and I don't know if I change the ride for what it is and what it's been so far.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. It's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of people are usually complaining about their many hats. At least what I often hear from people who work at agencies who are a little bit stressed out. How do you manage that kind of position where you are doing so many things at once? Like, how do you maintain this excitement? Is it just like you think it's just the type of person that you are? Like, you enjoy kind of having all these different responsibilities, so maybe you're not bored? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to I'll apologize in advance because I talk in a lot of cliches and phrases here. So I'll start with the first one. We'll rip the Band-Aid off. But, like, one of the ones I go to, and I think people use but don't use the full phrase, right, is a jack of all trades. Mm-hmm. That's usually somebody referred to who can do a little bit of everything but can't do them well. But people forget the rest of the phrase, which is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but sometimes better than a master of one. So that's kind of how I view myself when it comes to the marketing realm. And listen, there's a couple different philosophies in terms of what position you're hiring for, the person you're looking to fill that position, and the ultimate goal of where this person and role is going to. I'm of the believer of, like, I would like to get and am aspiring to get to a position where I am overseeing a team of fantastic individuals who are tremendously smarter than me in their individual niche. You know, I want to know about how SEO works. I want to know the difference between the technical side of things and the back end side of things. But I also don't want to be the one that's digging through Ahrefs or SEM Rush all day. You know, I want to know how a website's built, but I don't want to be the kind of website designer. I want to know how the color palette is playing with our paid advertising and how the different resolutions and social channels work. But I also don't want to be the one that's sticking that's keeping up with all the kind of TikTok trends and all of that things day in and day out. So being more of the conductor of the marketing orchestra is kind of how I've really viewed this. So it's been really fun to kind of learn a little bit about everything and then apply that, especially when there's overlap. And I would say, kind of going back to the original question of like, how do you balance all the different hats, and to boil it down to almost oversimplification, right? Like it comes down to prioritization, and how do you prioritize things? You know, that could be on a monthly basis. It could be on a quarterly basis. For somebody like me and what's going on, like it's a weekly and or daily basis. Sometimes it's by the hour, depending on what's going on. Like maybe I have to drop something and I gotta pay attention to this because we have a client that's looking or a prospect that's looking for something, and I'm the one that's going to put the kind of deck together or adjust the template so that we can try to secure this managed deal. Or, you know, something broke on the website and it needs my attention immediately because I'm the only one that knows how to operate the website as of right now, you know? So it allows for, it can be stressful. Of course, I have days just like everyone else where I'm pulling my hair out and I'm getting a couple grays here, you know, because of it. But at the end of the day, what it makes for is like an exciting landscape of, okay, what is the task for today versus like the 9 to 5 punch in, punch out. And okay, we've been doing the same thing for 9, 10, 16 months now. Like, where is the light at the end of this tunnel? So that's what I would say. The ever changing daily responsibilities helps keep things exciting, and being well adjusted to knowing what the priorities are. And that comes down to communication. Like that's what really helps me keep the right hat on at the right time.
Yeah, no, I think that makes complete sense. And I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing to be able to have this experience in all of these different areas that are related to marketing. Because I think kind of the best marketing leads have that experience, because you don't have to be incredible at every part of this. But, you know, if your goal one day is to be able to oversee this, you know, this conglomerate of people that are experienced and, you know, maybe the best at those things, then at least you have an understanding of all of them on an individual level that you can, you know, provide advice here and there, or like at least when they're explaining it to you, make sense of it rather than be like, I don't know what you're doing, just take care of it, you know, kind of thing. And that's kind of a hands-off approach. Obviously, if you can trust your team, then, you know, sometimes that's fine. But to have experience in all of those things, to be have a better understanding of if something is being done properly is really important. So like,
Yeah,
that experience is valuable.
yeah, you know, and I want to be, I want to be part of a team where I can say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and here's kind of, I don't want to say the box I'm putting you in, but here's the scaffolding, right? Like, now build within there. I've given you kind of the restraints of, don't do this, and we're not looking for that, because that's outside of the scope of what is kind of brewing up in here between the ears, right? And if I can pull from a couple of these different areas, and again, going back to that kind of conductor of the orchestra analogy, you know, sometimes you need a bit more bass, and sometimes you need them to kind of tone down a little bit. And that's how I envision, you know, kind of running that type of organization, and keeping things moving flawlessly, or as close as you can.
Yeah, exactly. It's not always perfect. But yeah, no, I completely understand, because I think that, you know, reining some people in is really important, especially for, you know, like prosperity. Like, you need, I think a lot of people, if not everyone, need a level of parameters when there's so many different approaches of how to do something or where to go with something. Obviously, that's up for debate for different fields. Like, of course, like creative fields need a bit more. Actually, sometimes they might need even more parameters because there's so many different ways of doing things. But that's why, you know, you have clients who have specifications for certain things. But yeah, I think that it is important to have a vision. I think that I hear from a lot of founders that, you know, they, or sometimes duo founders, actually, I hear from this the most. Like, there's two people that have started an agency together. One is like the vision person, and one is the practical person, and they balance each other out really well, because the vision person sometimes has trouble, like, kind of, you know, like reining in their, you know, excitement about certain things, whereas the practical person kind of like puts all of their stuff into fruition and kind of, you know, dictates that. And it's like, I think when you're just one person, it's really important to be able to be both of those people and kind of work with everyone that you're, you know, having those relationships with.
Yeah, and I you know, to exactly that point, I think that's partially where some folks like myself, and you know, I've got days like that too, where you feel burnt out, you know, because it's like I want to do these things. I want, you know, I'm so stuck in one mindset, whether it's too much of the visionary or too much of the cynic, if you will, right? Of we can't do that, we don't have the resources, we don't have the budget, I don't have the time, you know, and it's hard. It's hard. And again, going back to the communication and the prioritization of certain things, having enough wherewithal to also prioritize taking a step back to say like, okay, we've been running at full speed, we've been doing a lot of things, are we doing the right things, are we moving the needle, am I thinking about it the right way, you know? And like, if your answer is yes every time, like fantastic, keep going, you know, that's amazing. But like other times you have to, maybe the answer is no, and you say, okay, well, are we 1 degree off, are we 20 degrees off, where are we from this kind of bullseye mark, and how do we recalibrate? And that could be like the tactical of what you're actually doing, or the kind of mental exhaustion of like, can we sustain this workload, or are we just going to run ourselves into the ground? And it's a tough challenge. It's one that I think everyone kind of goes through at some point in their career, whether it's by themselves or with a team. You know, it's something that I think a lot of people can really resonate with.
Yeah, and I think that there's a really great point that you made about kind of like reevaluating at a bunch of different times. Like, I think that if you're not doing that, then you're not necessarily looking at closely enough as you should, because like there's, even if things are going relatively smoothly, or it appears to be, there's sometimes always something that you could be doing better. And if you're not considering that, then, you know, you might be at it might be at a detriment to, you know, the business, because sometimes you do need to like pivot in areas even if things seem to go well, because some world altering event like COVID happens, where like, you know, a lot of people had to change a lot of things that they were doing, and there were a lot of people that were actually, you know, set up for success like spontaneously because of this event, because they had pivoted to like being more remote or whatever it may be. And there's things that a lot of people don't consider the possibility of, which, you know, there's things like COVID where how could you have expected that to happen? But
Of course.
there are things that you can kind of prepare for, like with the, you know, rise of AI and all these different things that,
Yeah.
you know, you have
Yeah.
to
I mean,
kind of adjust to.
oh, sorry. No, I mean, as you were saying that, I'm thinking of a brand like Peloton, you know, like if Peloton had made the recalibration before the recalibration would have been needed, who knows what the story of that brand could be like. You know, COVID hit, everyone was stuck in their tiny little shoebox apartments, and like, well, I got to do something because I can't get outside because I'm gonna die and everything else, you know. So everyone bought a Peloton bike, or they bought a Peloton treadmill, because that was the brand that was on everyone's top of mind.
Yep.
And the stock exploded, everyone had one. And now look at it. People are selling $1,200 Peloton bikes now for like $100. They're giving away. I see them on the side of the
Yep.
street all the time. And it's like you know, you rode the wave, and you got what you got out of it, which is great. But like, if you had taken that extra pause to be like, are we this popular because people love us and love our product, or are we just striking when the iron is ripping hot right now, and what happens when that iron cools off? because it will, at some point it will cool off. And thankfully it did, because if it didn't, we'd all still be locked up in our apartments and houses, and who knows what that would look like. We'd all be crazy cat ladies at this point.
No, and you have a great point there, is like the idea that yes, there are definitely, founders that create a business to ride a wave and then sell it. And if that's your goal, then if the Pelotons of the world did, amazing at that. But don't think that's how it worked out. And it's something that you really have to consider, of like it's sometimes, I'm sure it can be exhausting to constantly be forward looking, like future looking, is what I meant. But you kind of have to be, if you want to keep adjusting to the world and how it changes, especially with marketing being the most ever changing thing involved in an agency, I feel like. It's something that you really need to adjust to. And, again, things can always be going fine, but if you're not being future looking in your approach to things and like what's to come and like different trends, then that's probably not going to work out well, unless you're planning to just sell. That's fine too.
Well, I mean, yeah, look at what happened to something like Jaguar, right? They were, I would say, a brand not thinking about time at all. We're talking about a brand who had so much rich history that they could rely on, a brand that was not taking advantage of the current moment in time, right? This kind of transition period between, or somehow nebulous time between gas powered combustion engines and electric vehicles. Like maybe there's something there for them. And also forward thinking, what is the brand 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now? And now they've kind of found themselves in a bit of a rebrand that everyone's going, what the hell was that, man? What is this? Who is this for? What are you selling anymore? Are you selling refrigerators or a silent disco party? I have no idea what's going on here. Versus a brand, I would say, and you may see me do this, but I usually try to pull from automotive and kind of luxury watch brands. Two things I've got a little bit of a passion and hobby for, but I also think those brands can be applied to every sort of marketing facet. But a company like Harley Davidson, again, another rich history. They know, and everyone knows who rides Harley Davidson motorcycles. Like that's a very clear buyer persona there. And the way that they're adapting and moving into this electric vehicle era, and can they survive? Is this kind of what we need to be? Are we still the rebels? How do we become an EV rebel brand? Is that possible? And watching them navigate that is much different than something like a Jaguar who just said, I guess we'll rip whatever this proverbial Band-Aid off and we'll figure it out.
No, this is an incredible topic that I love getting into, because I really like talking about the, like if a brand did something different, then would they be in the same place that they are right now? And there's so many case studies on this. And I think of, I think more of clothing brands, because my passion is more of like my hobby is a lot of fashion and different things like that. So I kind of understand you in the way of like your hobby kind of translates to the marketing approaches that you view. I think of Gap, having not heard of Gap since I was a child, because I think that was the last time it was popular. And then it suddenly coming up on, my Instagram feed, and seeing ads of very trendy clothes. And I'm like, why did it take them this long to, adapt to the trends of today? I don't know. I think they were a very standard brand back then, of like having, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like baseline clothes, like very, uniform, like solid colors, whatever it may be. And that's always great and, reliable. Like we have Levi's that doesn't, now they're also adjusting to trends. And I think that's something that's really important, but you also have to consider your audience with that. And I think that that's something that Jaguar was not properly doing, is that you can always adjust to trends or like do something new and innovative or something that's out of the box, but you have to consider your audience and like you don't want your audience being like, why did my brand that I love do this? You don't want that reaction ever. Like
No, you don't ever want
Yeah.
to feel betrayed by. Yeah, no, and I feel that. Listen, I'll play in your arena here too. You know, I'm thinking of Abercrombie and Finch. You know, like
Mhm.
and in the same vein of Abercrombie and Gap and American Eagle, you know, I think of the days of my childhood past, you know, walking through the mall, and it's like, well, we could go into the Hollister, and I could try to navigate and maybe bump my way around this dark room
So
to try to find
excited.
the trendy new
Smells
T-shirt that's
so strong.
soaking wet in cologne and perfume. Or my mom's going to drag me into Gap to say, no, we're going to buy the $7 T-shirt for you
Yes.
here. But
Mhm.
going back to that evolution of the brand, I think a brand like Abercrombie and Finch have done a fantastic job of getting, you know, in hockey, they say, like, don't skate where the puck is, skate where the puck's going to be.
Mhm.
That's where they've done that. They've skated where the puck was going to be, and they knew what their audience and buyers were looking for. And I'm thinking of specifically one fashion trend of these 90 retro tees that look, you know, the little bit of stone wash, with the crazy type, and especially the ones around sports, the old NBA, the old NFL type stuff. And it's like, why did that become such a trend? Well, it's like, first off, all the streaming services now make it so much easier for the younger generation to watch the games and be a part of it. There's fantasy, now there's sports betting. So now there's a new, younger, reinvigorated viewership into these leagues. And what comes along with that? I mean, generally it's a male dominated type of viewing experience, but what comes along with that? It's the reluctant girlfriend that kind of wants to be a part of this. And my heart goes out to the women who are dating the meatheads, because it's tough. It's tough to be a part of that, to sit in a Buffalo Wild Wings for 8 hours watching as many screens as they can fit on a wall. But you know, those like that there, right there is a perfect example of, like, well, I want to be a part of the experience too. I want to feel like I'm still me, enjoying something else. And where do they go? They go to their brand, which is Abercrombie and Finch and Gap, and it, you know, now you've got your way of experiencing and being part of the whole pageantry of, you know, NFL Sunday football or Monday Night Football, whatever it is, in your authentic self, you know. And that's a difference of being like, oh, well, just buy a jersey. And it's like, yeah, but that's not me. Like, I'm not your buyer. And you know, a lot of these people are in the camp of like, and I never will. I'm not interested in that, you know. So they've done a really good job with that. And we'll see in the next coming months and years, and if this is yet another Peloton wave, and it'll be like, oh, everyone's got that Abercrombie shirt, or if it's like, no, if you want something, if you want the retro stuff, you got to go to Abercrombie's, got the best designs, and that's where you go. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, exactly. There are so many examples of, you know, people being forward looking and seeing and like keeping up on trends, and then people that have just not adapted to that. Because, and there's a certain time and a place to be updated on trends, and there's also some like where you have to have your proper brand awareness and realize like, no, people like what this brand is as it is. Like Cracker Barrel, for example.
I was waiting for that one to pop up.
Because no one was complaining about how Cracker Barrel was, and then they decided to do this rebrand, which I think recently I read an article or saw an article title. I shouldn't say that I'm so informed that I read the entire thing. Of, you know, the brand in which they, the company in which they worked with, in charge of that campaign is fired. Obviously.
I'm shocked.
Why would you, don't, if something's not broken, don't fix it. Like, you can be forward looking and updated on trends, but if you're a classic brand with, you know, very devoted fan, which I did not know there was a devoted fan base for Cracker Barrel until this happened. However, if you are appealing to a certain age group, which I have to assume is older people, which is, no, you know, I love Cracker Barrel, no shade at all, but
I've heard they got fantastic pancakes. I've seen the billboards on the side of 95.
That's so interesting. I've never heard about their pancakes.
Well, that's what the billboards say. It's been years since I've been into a Cracker Barrel. No shade. There's just none around here.
incredible place. But
Yeah.
why, there older people notoriously do not love change. I mean, no one really loves change in general. I guess that's like a human trait, but
Mm.
older people love the classic experience that they grew up with. Like they live for nostalgia, and that is exactly what Cracker Barrel promotes. And to
That's
have
it.
changed
It's
it is
in the core of all their decor and design throughout the restaurant. Like the old rocking chairs, the wooden porch, the steel wooden wash for clothes. This is not a brand to say we need to modernize for the modern age. Like no. No, no,
no.
no. I think if you knew what your brand was and who your buyers are and why they love you, you would say, no, we're a brand so deeply rooted in nostalgia, we are synonymous. Yeah, and listen, I can appreciate the fact that they took a swing in some regards, but at the same time, it felt like out of all the things to do and kind of make changes to, like the logo and the way to approach that, it just felt like it was misguided. It felt like again, the chasing. We need to think about in finance, the running joke, right, is like we always need to fight for shareholder value, maximize shareholder value. And that's what it kind of felt like. We have to make the pivot now so that in the next fiscal year, everyone can get paid out their nice hefty bonuses, and people can taste that. It tastes stale. It's
Hollow.
it's a sour, bitter taste of, I think this is a greedy money play. I don't think you're really doing this to better the experience, like, and especially for something like restaurant and food. It's like at the core of it, it's
Mhm.
it's the product, the product that is being consumed, and the atmosphere plays a massive part. Like, let me not downplay that by any means. That plays a massive, there's a reason why people love Applebee's and Chili's. I love that shit on the wall. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh yeah.
Like that's part of the experience. But if you're going to be like, small tweaks go a very long way for a brand that's already established. And it felt like a bit of a miscalculation.
Yes, 100%. And I also think that I think you really need to be cognizant when you're taking a risk like that, because there are like successful, for the, debatable, I guess sometimes, but there are successful, very risky campaigns that large brands have done for, changing up their brand, but a lot of them do it just to maintain relevance and then rein back. And I don't think that was exactly what Cracker Barrel was doing. However, you can see clear trends of that throughout history, in which people, I'm trying to think of like an example right now, but I I've talked about this in the past, of the fact that there are huge brands that are able to take that risk, and like maybe it'll get everyone in an uproar and a brouhaha and whatever, but they rein back and they hold true to what their brand was originally, and just like, it brings, more awareness to their brand. And there is like a very calculated way of doing that properly, in which it just brings back relevance, but it doesn't make people too angry. Whereas changing not only, your logo, but also your atmosphere of your restaurants, and like, gutting them in a way, is not something that I think that's too drastic for people who are loyal to that brand to see.
Yeah, and I would say, like sports, again, going back to the sports analogies. Sports teams generally do like a bit of a new logo, or a new jersey, I should say. And sometimes that includes a bit of a either reinvented retro logo, or refitting, some sort of recalibration of colors. And I would say that exercise, especially done in a relatively low risk environment, right? And you put out a new jersey that's retro inspired, or like the New York Rangers, that's a hockey team I follow. It's the centennial year, 100 years. So like, they were able to put out a new jersey to invoke the nostalgia and the heritage of those 100 years, but also kind of fit it for the modern game and the modern jersey sweater style now too. So listen, if the jersey was a flop, listen, that sucks, because this is the year to kind of really make that splash. But 101 is going to be next year, and you have another opportunity at bat.
Exactly.
You've got another swing, versus like making a full blown, we are no longer this, you know, now we've made, so there are other brands where I feel like if you had tested the water, if you had dunked a couple toes in to see, if we make these changes, how are people responding? And how are our loyal customers responding too? Because, you know, for someone like going back to the Jaguar example, you know, I would say that there's a healthy, loyal customer base of folks who are like, I love Jaguar cars, I love the brand, I love what they stand for, I love it, down the line. And listen, at the end of the day, maybe there are brands that have made a miscalculation in terms of who they want as their customer base and now have to reject folks, because that's another unfortunate part of the branding thing too, of we've committed too far down a road and now need to forcefully exclude some people because that will invite the correct, or at least the desired, group of consumers in. And that's a tough exercise. But one, same thing with the forward thinking. You have to do that in an environment where you understand as best as you can kind of the ramifications of some of these decisions and outcomes.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that there's definitely environments that are right for like trying to change something and testing it. And I think that there's also an additional option that I think is very funny and a little almost like minorly manipulative, I suppose, is very slowly changing your brand to a degree in which is so minute that no one would really notice unless they were very, very, very cognizant. And then, you know, one day it's just different. For example, Walmart has been changing the color of blue in which they have been using over the course of like 20 years or something like that. And
yeah, one
now it's a
hex
completely
color
different
lighter
color.
or something like that.
It's hysterical. It's like, okay, like if you just change it from dark blue to light blue overnight, yeah, maybe some people would be like, I don't like that as much. But they just slowly used the gradient and finally got to the color desired.
Yeah, and I mean, to exactly that point, right? Like a Walmart is such it, not to be pedantic here, right? But like it's obviously such a massive brand that even something as benign as we're just gonna make the blue just a little lighter. We're just gonna make it just a little lighter. It's not gonna be a problem. Yeah, but there's hundreds of thousands of stores and applications and creative designs that need to be revamped to fit that. Otherwise, you know, there's a massive branding inconsistency. You know, you have the legacy stuff. What are you doing with that? There's a lot of those things that need to be considered. So for somebody and a company like an organization like Walmart, they have to be forward thinking to say, in 10 years, if this is what we logo, or maybe 10 years might be a bit of a stretch, but in 3, 4, 5 years, if this is what we want our logo and our brand and our visual identity to be, we have to start making the changes now, or at the very least start the planning of it. You know, and I would say the slow evolution of something is great as if you keep in mind the destination that you're heading towards, or at the very least you're heading. You know, if you just start making tweaks because oh, I like this blue a little better, or this yellow would be kind of cool to splash in there, or what if we invite this, what if we build this software and also sell this, you know, that's when, you know, in finance, I kind of call it the lifestyle creep of like, I'm just going to buy one more pair of shoes, or I'm going to, well, yeah, we let's add the extra bedroom on the house, or let's buy you know, let's whatever it is. And all of a sudden, you know, 10 years later, you find yourself going, how the hell did we get where is this? How do we get here? Brands can very easily find themselves in that, in terms of like, why are we selling all of this crap? Because that's what it's become now. Like it's no longer a quality product or service that people are going, I come to you for this and only this, and there's nobody else that's better than this, or nobody else that fills my need like this brand does. You know, and now all of a sudden you've become like the minivan of whatever you're selling, and you're like, it's too much. I just need a little compact vehicle to get me to and fro. Maybe it's got some good gas mileage on it. You know, I don't need the vacuum in the back of the car, or, you know, whatever other bells and whistles that you're trying to sell me, because that's not for me. You know, and it you know, again, it kind of goes back to like things need to be done with intention. And even something as relatively small as color choices have big, long lasting impacts.
Yeah, 100%. People do have visceral reactions to different blues. It's very odd, but it is something that does happen. Well,
It is very true. Navy blue and cyan blue, two wildly different
blue.
experiences.
Yeah, I have a visceral reaction to cyan blue. I do not want to see that, but baby blue is great. Very, very homey, very warm. um, but
I agree on all of it.
so we got a little, I mean, I love getting off track, but I do want to like showcase a little more about you before we go today because we're running out of time. But what I want to know is, okay, 5 years ago, because I love to be past looking or forward looking at the end of the podcast. 5 years ago, what is something that you would be proud of and or surprised about that you are doing today?
I would say probably the biggest thing I'd be surprised about is that I've kind of found my way into the SaaS side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Being situated so squarely into like true startup environment. And I would say I would be also surprised and proud about how I've been able to take a bit of my personal brand now, especially within LinkedIn. I've been able to take the relatively nonsense content and stuff that I kind of put out there and turn it into real relationships that drive business results. If you were to have told me those couple of things that this is what my life would look like and what I'd be doing, I'd be like, maybe, but just feels like I'm so it felt like I was really destined to be in kind of financial services for quite some time. And I think it comes with, again, kind of going back what I mentioned at the top of like finding somebody who's specialized and is really good in a certain niche. That's where I felt like I was heading. I felt like I was going to be the person who I'm a marketer first and foremost, but I found myself who was understanding the financial services landscape and the players involved and how certain nuances matter to certain buyers and where they're situated in their buyer journey. Now I've kind of stepped back and I feel like I'm almost flirting with the sales side of things, where I'm doing more outbound sales, frankly, because of that's the nature of our business. But using the marketing lingo and expertise to convey the sales. So I would say that's probably where I'm most surprised and frankly proud about as well.
That's lovely. And I think that it is really awesome to be able to discover through having experience in a bunch of different areas of your career to be able to, find out what you're truly passionate about. And that's not something that everyone gets the opportunity to find. So it's really incredible that you have been able to discover that in your journey.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm definitely lucky to have a job and be in an area, um, and industry where I can be excited about what the potential is and where I'm at now versus like, listen, I got nothing but respect for people who got a 9 to 5 job who just kind of do what they got to do because they got to put food on the table and have a shelter. But if you can crack a smile or have a couple laughs throughout the day, it makes things a whole hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's why I love the podcast, because I do get to laugh a lot. I get to put people in absurd situations about absurd products, and we get to talk. We get to go on tangents about specific brands that I think are, I just love. I love nerding out about different like choices that other brands do, because that's how you learn. Learn from
Yeah.
like, looking at different trends in different fields as well. So this was an
Learn,
incredible journey that we've been on today.
I'm glad. I had a ton of fun doing it.
Thank you so much, AJ. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This was an incredible time. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. We'd be nothing without you. Please check out AJ and Parakeet in the description below. And I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you, AJ.